The War Council chamber fell silent as Admiral Thex'nar of the Sovereign Coalition placed a primitive Earth weapon on the crystalline table. The object clattered with a crude metallic sound that made several council members recoil. "This," Thex'nar announced, his 4 eyes gleaming with contempt, "is what the humans call a rifle. It propels small metal fragments using controlled chemical explosions." He paused for effect. Chemical explosions, like children playing with fireworks. Laughter rippled through the assembled fleet commanders. Sub-Commander Vextrel leaned forward, her chitinous plates clicking in amusement. "Our energy weapons can glass a continent. They throw metal pebbles at supersonic speeds. This is the species that refuses to surrender their system. They have no plasma weaponry, no graviton manipulators, no quantum disruptors," Thex'nar continued. "Intelligence reports they still use rockets filled with explosive compounds for space travel. They wage war the way our ancestors did 10,000 cycles ago." Commander Jorath, veteran of 17 campaigns, tapped his foreclaw on the table. "Have we considered why such a primitive species survived on that world? The reports classify Earth as a Class-12 Deathworld. Only 3 others in known space match that designation." "Irrelevant," Thex'nar dismissed. "Surviving wild predators is not the same as facing the might of the Coalition. We've given them 3 standard rotations to surrender. They've refused. We'll demonstrate what real military power looks like. Commence the invasion." The human outpost on Titan was the Coalition's first target. 12 sovereign warships dropped from quantum space, their shields shimmering with enough energy to power a small star. They expected token resistance, perhaps a desperate last stand from a doomed species. Instead, they found hell waiting. "What in the void?" Thex'nar stared at his tactical display as it lit up with thousands of signatures. "Those can't be weapons. They're too simple, too slow." "Multiple projectile launches detected," his tactical officer reported, confusion evident in his synthesized voice. "Tracking 18,000 individual objects. Sir, they're just metal, inert metal cylinders with chemical propulsion." "Missiles," Thex'nar laughed. "They're throwing missiles at ships that can manipulate reality itself. Activate point defense. This will be over in..." The first nuclear warhead detonated 3 kilometers from his flagship. Then the second. Then 50 more in a precisely calculated cascade that turned space into a sea of atomic fire. The Coalition shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, suddenly found themselves absorbing the raw kinetic and thermal force of humanity's most terrible invention. Shields at 60%. How is this possible? On the surface of Titan, Colonel Sarah Chen watched the fireworks through her bunker's viewport. That got their attention. "All units, execute Echo 3. Show them what Marines do when someone crashes our party." The aliens had expected ground forces to engage in honorable long-range combat with energy weapons and shields. What they got instead was thousands of humans in powered armor erupting from concealed positions, wielding weapons that spat depleted uranium at hypersonic velocities. The kinetic rounds punched through energy shields like they weren't there because the aliens had never considered that anyone still used purely physical projectiles. Vextrel's landing force discovered this the hard way when her entire vanguard was shredded in the first 30 seconds. "Retreat, reform the line. These weapons, they ignore shields." "That's the idea, sweetheart," a Marine sergeant muttered over an open channel before his squad's railgun turned an alien tank into a crater. In orbit, Thex'nar watched his tactical situation deteriorate with each passing moment. 3 of his ships were crippled. 2 more were venting atmosphere. The humans weren't just using primitive weapons, they were using them brilliantly. "Sir, we're detecting electronic warfare across all bands. Our communications are being jammed, our sensors spoofed." "How are they?" "They evolved these technologies over centuries," Jorath interrupted grimly. "While we moved to quantum communications, they perfected electronic warfare. We have countermeasures against energy attacks. They're hitting us with radio waves and physical interference." A human destroyer, little more than a missile platform with engines, screamed past the Coalition formation at a velocity that should have torn it apart. It fired every weapon at point-blank range directly into a cruiser's engine section. No tactics, no fancy maneuvers, just raw aggression and calculated violence. The cruiser exploded. The human ship, too damaged to recover, rammed a second vessel on its way to oblivion. "They're insane!" someone screamed over the command channel. "No," Thex'nar whispered, watching his fleet crumble. "They're from a death world. Everything on their planet tried to kill them for millions of years. They learned to kill back." The battle raged for 6 hours. 6 hours of humanity demonstrating that superior technology means nothing against superior tactics, experience, and sheer bloody-minded determination. They used cyber attacks to turn the Coalition's own ships against each other. They detonated nuclear mines in orbital patterns that corralled ships into kill zones. They deployed kinetic kill vehicles, literally just tungsten rods with guidance systems that struck with the force of tactical nukes. And when the Coalition tried to retreat, they found human submarines lurking in Titan's methane seas, launching torpedoes at their landing craft. Submarines. In space warfare. It shouldn't have worked. It did. General Marcus Webb stood in the Titan Command Center, watching the last Coalition ships limp into quantum space. His uniform was crisp despite 6 hours of battle management. He lifted his coffee cup toward the viewport. "Admiral." He transmitted on an open channel he knew Thex'nar would receive. "You came to teach us about modern warfare. Thanks for the free target practice. We'll send your survivors home with a message: humans didn't get to the top of Earth's food chain by fighting fair. We got there by fighting to win. Come back when you're ready to face an actual military." Vextrill, bleeding from multiple wounds and missing an arm, stumbled aboard the last evacuation shuttle. She looked back at the burning wreckage scattered across Titan's icy surface and felt something she'd never experienced in 40 years of military service. Genuine terror, not of death. Of the species that had inflicted this defeat with weapons her people had abandoned millennia ago. Across Coalition space, the news spread like plasma fire. The humans, the species with the primitive weapons and the Deathworld origins, had inflicted a crushing defeat on the Sovereign Coalition's 5th Fleet. Not through luck, not through overwhelming numbers, through pure, refined, terrifying competence. The Council of Sovereignty convened an emergency session. Joe Rath, newly promoted to Admiral after Thex'nar's disgrace, stood before them with the recovered human rifle. "This weapon," he began, his voice carrying weight that made the Council lean forward, "fires a metal projectile at 1,000 meters per second. It was designed 300 years ago by human standards. It requires no exotic materials, no quantum mechanics, no gravitic manipulation. A human child can learn to use it effectively." He placed it on the table with reverence, not contempt. "In the hands of a trained human soldier, it can kill any one of us through any personal shield we possess. And they have billions of them. They have weapons that make this look like a toy. They have tactics we've never encountered, because they spent their entire evolution fighting the most dangerous predators in known space. Each other." The council chamber remained silent. "They call it kinetic warfare. We call it the reason we're proposing an immediate armistice and technology exchange program. Because the alternative is discovering what other surprises humanity has prepared for species arrogant enough to attack their home." On Earth, in the Pentagon's command center, General Webb reviewed the casualty reports. 372 dead, a tragedy, but far less than expected. He thought about the alien fleet limping home, thought about their arrogance and their condescension. "Primitive weapons," he muttered, signing off on commendations for the fallen. "They never asked why we kept them, never wondered what we learned fighting each other for 10,000 years. His aide approached quietly. "Sir, intelligence reports the Coalition is requesting peace negotiations." Webb nodded slowly. "Good. Maybe they'll learn what we teach every officer at the Academy. It's not the size of the gun that matters. It's the warrior holding it. And warriors?" He smiled grimly. "We've been perfecting that for our entire history. In the void between stars, the message spread. Species throughout the galaxy received the same intelligence briefing, saw the same battle footage, learned the same terrible lesson. Humanity had spent millennia turning their death world home into a crucible that forged the most dangerous soldiers in the galaxy. They didn't have the best technology. They didn't need it. They had something far more terrifying, the accumulated wisdom of 10,000 years of warfare. The creativity born from fighting without superior tools and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. The galaxy had made its worst mistake. It had given humanity a reason to show what it could do, and humanity had shown them exactly why you never, ever underestimate an enemy just because their weapons look primitive. Because sometimes the oldest tools are still the best, especially in the hands of those who've never forgotten how to use them.